and welcome to the If They Can Do It podcast, the podcast that interviews absolutely ordinary people who do extraordinary things and wants you walking away thinking, hey, if they can do it, so can I. And this week, my friends, there are those people in your life where you meet them, you hit it off, you have a lot of the same interests, you inspire one another with your talents, you bounce things off of each other because you're just starting to discover your talent. So you bond over that, and then life happens. And then life gets crazy, and then the calendars and the months, you just keep flipping them, you buy new calendars, and next thing you know, it's almost a decade later. But I will tell you, that decade made no difference to the friendship because from afar, you've been inspired, you've been rooting for them, you see that their talent has only gone deeper and just... you just keep being inspired by what they've been able to do. And honestly, the beautiful grit that they have had through life, building a business, and quite honestly, pivoting and just deciding I'm going to change because that's what needs to happen in my life right now. This guest has inspired me in every single one of those ways. Without further ado, Jessica, how's it going?
It's good. You're going to make me cry. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
For that.
I mean, it's probably crazy to think about, like, when you started, so you're a photographer, portrait
Yes.
photographer and wedding photographer.
Yeah.
And when we met, we were just like kids who love to take pictures.
Yeah.
And we're just like trying to figure it out. And like, hey, you're starting a company? Me too. You want to like just root each other on while we don't know what the heck we are doing at all? Like, that was a crazy time.
It was. I remember, I invited you to come with me on a shoot because I didn't know what I was doing. And I was like,
that's
come
so
with me.
I remember. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was like a couple's shoot, and I was like, come with me. And we went to like downtown Denver, and I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing. Like, please come with me and help me, like, basically. So, yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's so nutty. And then, like, fast forward, I mean, you that was the beginning of such an amazing business and building a company in Denver, right?
Yeah, so I've been a wedding photographer for 14 years now. It's been insane. I never, when I say that out loud, I'm kind of like, wait, what?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so for 14 years, I've been doing that. And I have been afforded such beautiful opportunities with that. I've traveled all over the world. I've shot in different countries. I have been published in magazines. I've won awards. It's just like, when you think about that, you're just like, what? But I think like what has been so crazy to really look back on in this like 14-year career as a photographer has been the amount of people that I have connected with, and have been a part of their lives, and some of the most beautiful, raw, even sometimes painful moments of their lives has just been, it's like wild when I think about it. So yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. And I mean, you think about that, and even just being in Colorado is not an easy place to build a photography business.
No, it's incredibly saturated, especially as, things have moved forward and social media grew. I mean, when I started like my Instagram, for example, we were just posting pictures of our food.
Exactly.
But now you use it as like a marketing tool. And, with the rise of that obviously shifted and changed so much with how I had to do my business and how I had to market myself. And I think it also shed light on, oh, well, if these people are a photographer, like maybe I'll try to be a photographer. And so, and as technology is improving as well, people are finding, passion in different ways. And I think, Colorado is a destination for a lot of people too, to like get married. So you definitely saw an influx of like wedding photographers in the area for sure.
For sure. And like how beautiful Colorado, we would still be there if it wasn't so expensive.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I still go back frequently. Family's there, best friends are there. And it's definitely, it has my heart so much. But I'm in Southern California now, loving it. It's
Yeah.
beautiful. Just, I was ready for a change, you know, I was ready for something completely different, and I wanted to kind of like 180. And I keep joking, I traded the mountains for the ocean, and I can't really complain about that, I guess.
Right. Right.
So yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. As you were talking and just like, and we'll get into a lot of the growth that has happened in the 14 years and kind of how you're pivoting and everything. But
Yeah.
when you think about 14 years ago and you think about you and you know the girl that you were there, what are you most proud of that girl?
See, I keep telling you, you're gonna make me cry. um Gosh, I I feel like at that time in my life, I I just was like tenacious. Like I'm so proud of her for not giving up on herself. Like I feel like I look back at that and it was just kind of like nothing is going to stop me. Like I'm going to do whatever I'm going to do, even if I feel like I have no support or no other way to do it, or even if I'm scared, or even if I have no money. Like, I mean, when I quit my full time job to do photography full time,
Mm-hmm.
I literally had no money saved. Like, I literally
Wow.
I just took a leap. I had one wedding booked for the following year. That was it, and I just like jumped. I was like, I was miserable at my, you know, full-time job, and I
Yeah.
was like, I gotta go. Like, I just gotta get out of here. And so, you know, I'm proud of myself for being willing to take the big risks, even if it feels like really scary, even if I have a lot of anxiety. Um, I think in a lot of ways, you know, we all ebb and flow through life. Like we weave in and out, you know, and I think I kind of came to this place of, even if I got sidetracked, I've always managed to somehow figure out how to come back to me, like come back to myself and come back to my truth. And I think that's what has allowed me to just kind of be able to harness it. And my sister jokes, she's like, you always just somehow land on your feet. And I'm like, I don't know, but I do know. Like I do know. I do that because I believe that I can, you know, and
Yeah.
I ride that. I ride that belief in myself, and I'm proud of her for that, because that's how I created this. It's because I believed I could.
Yeah. Do you think, because I think about a lot of the changes that you're doing now. I guess before I ask this question, give a little context to the changes that you're doing
Yeah.
now and like a big delete button that's about to happen here soon.
Whew. Yeah. So I kind of, gosh, I don't even know where to start, to be honest, because this has been a process.
Yeah.
I am transitioning as from being a photographer to being a self concept coach, and basically getting ready to kind of like let go of something that I built to build something else. And it's crazy. There's a lot that has led up to this. Certainly, like most people, the pandemic played a big hand in this. During the pandemic, I lost over half of my business, went through a horrendous heartbreak with somebody that I thought I was going to marry. And I think the biggest shock during that time for me was actually waking up and looking in the mirror, and I, in full honesty, like I hated myself. You know, here I was with a full-time job doing a passion of mine, like was am good at it, like really good at it. And you know, being sought out and do it, like traveling and doing the things that like everybody like says they want to do. And here I am doing it, but like I was miserable. Like I hated my life, I hated myself, and I just didn't feel good. And I couldn't figure out why. So when all that happened in 2020 with the breakup and the pandemic, I was like, something has to change.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really like dove into myself, into my heart. I mean, I was a mess, but like I really dove into like what is going on with me. I hired a coach, a therapist, a personal trainer. Like I was like, I need to figure this
Wow.
out, you know? Like
Yeah.
I kind of was just like sick of my own shit finally. Like I was just like, I
Mm-hmm.
can't do it. So in that like self-discovery, that's when I realized my passion for photography wasn't really even taking pictures. Like that wasn't what I loved about it. It was the connection. And I recognized what I loved was creating the connection between my client, like when it was a couple, like creating connection with them together. But
Mm-hmm.
not only the connection between the two of them, but the connection that I had with them, like building the trust and getting to know them and getting to know them on a level that, you might not always share with like somebody you're hiring to take a picture, like,
Yeah.
yes, photography is already vulnerable because you're standing in front of a camera and everyone feels awkward when they're doing that, especially if you're making out with your future husband. Like, I don't know, like it can be awkward, but I really just found that like I love getting to know people, and it kind of had this realization of that I have this uncanny ability to kind of see into the heart of people
Mm-hmm.
and bring out in them the things that they need to see. And so fast forward to like, I think it was 2022, I had a client that hired me to do headshots for her business. And she ended up hiring me for a second session, a few months later. And she was like a night and day, like different person in those two sessions. Like the first session, I was really like coaching her through it, like, you're doing great.
Yeah.
We talked about like her journey and where she was at. And then the second session, I was like, you're like a different woman. Like, who are you? And she told me that the session that we had before, like, brought out things for her that she wanted to like explore. And she said to me, she was like, I don't know what you do when you do what you do. She's like, but you like change things for me. So it was
Hmm.
like that moment. And then I had two other moments that happened after that. One with like a acquaintance friend, the other with another client. And all these people were like, I don't know what you do, but like, I wouldn't be where I am in my life if it wasn't like for like the conversations that we had, of the way you saw me, the way
Hmm.
you were able to bring this out of me. And I was like, that's my gift. That's what made me a talented photographer. It wasn't that I knew how to take an aesthetically pleasing photo. It was that I was able to bring something out of people. So I was like, why don't I take that talent and actually harness it to help people grow,
Yeah.
to help them through what I went through, like since the pandemic. Like I kind of went through that a little bit on my own. Like, yeah, I had my therapist and stuff, but like, I don't know. I was just kind of weirdly navigating it. And I want to help people find themselves and come back home to themselves, the way I have in the last 4 years. And so I was like, here we go. We are going to launch Roaring Love. That's the name of the business. And yeah, I'm a self concept coach and I help people do that now. So it's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, and the pivot, I mean, you just think of, there's a lot of identity in the work that you did and what you built.
Yeah.
Right. I think there's something in just hearing your story where leaving your job to do photography was a risk.
Yeah.
And there was that was scary, and then you build this thing up, and it took a lot of risk, it took a lot of doubt, you became strong, you were resilient, there was a lot of scariness, and then now you're good, you know how to run the business, right, like
Right.
you're
Right.
good. And it is very easy to build your identity in that, and almost be like, no, I can't just turn my back on this, I risk too much to get it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so now you have, like, let's just use an example of how you're doing a risk again, is you have your Instagram account,
Yeah.
which is going bye-bye, yeah?
Yeah, I have Instagram has 23,000 followers on it.
Uh-huh.
And it's been my photography account all this time. And as I've started to pivot, I changed the name of the account to Roaring Love. So that way it would follow me with my new coaching business.
Yeah.
But of course, because I'm posting different content, I'm not getting like reach. Like,
Okay.
but I wanted to change it because I wanted to try to like maintain my following. Like I wanted to
Yeah.
keep
Yeah.
my community that I'd already built. But Instagram like wasn't having it. So it was like yet again another situation, as it has been since I've been trying to start this business, of like, hey, it's time to let something go and take that risk again. And so I made the decision last week that I'm going to get rid of that Instagram. I'm going to start fresh. I'm going to build my community of Roaring Love from the ground up. And it's been incredibly humbling to like witness like which of my followers are following me, right? Who's coming with me, and who's not. And that is not always fun, but like I'm evolving, I'm growing. And you spoke about identity. Like I have been the adventurous wedding photographer for over a decade now, you know, like that's what I've been. And I think what shook me so much in 2020 when I went through my breakup and losing my, you know, my business with, you know, the pandemic and people can't have their weddings, was everything that I had built that identified me, that defined who I was crumbling. And I was using everything outside of me to define me instead of finding my worth and definition within myself. And I think that's part of the reason why I hated myself so much, is because I was relying on external factors to validate me, to tell me that I was worth something, to tell me I was chosen. And then when I was losing all of those things, I was losing myself, because I had given my power away to those things. And so obviously doing that work and learning that I am not defined by that, has led me to this place of, you know, being a little bit more comfortable with letting things go when I need to. It's still hard and it still feels uncomfortable. But like with this pivot, I'm recognizing like if I want to build a community that's like legitimately for this work and for the service that I'm trying to do, you know, and helping people, I do have to start fresh, because the people that followed me for photography might not necessarily be looking for photography. And I don't want people that want to keep me in a photography box to be trying to keep me in a photography box as I'm trying to grow as a person. So letting go of that identity and recognizing that my worth and who I am as a person does not change no matter what job I'm doing. And that those that do stick with me through the different phases and the different levels of my life, whether it's because I was a photographer or now because I'm a coach, it doesn't, like, those are my people, you know, like those are the ones, you know? So yeah, making the big moves, because you have to, like, that's the only way you're going to grow, is you have to take that risk of like letting something go that, you know, that you have used. Like, I'm not going to lie, sitting here, when people pull up my Instagram to follow me and they're like, oh yeah, you've got 23,000 followers. And I'm always like, oh, it's stupid. Like, it means nothing. But there was a little part of me that was like, yeah, I do. You're right. You know? And letting that go and saying, nope, this is going to be bigger. This is going to be better. And I can't hold on to something that is no longer serving me, that isn't what I'm supposed to be doing. Like, I can't cling to it because it's comfortable. I have to let it go, so that way I can go bigger.
Yeah. And what I really loved was the realization that it's not like it's a hard left turn in who you are. It's just a hard left turn in terms of context, because you found out the work is the same, bringing out and making people realize, you know, who they are and different aspects of who they are. It's just one is with a camera, one is not. And if you had to do something in a different context, even outside of coaching, you would still be you, and those strengths would still be you. Everything else is just context. And when we allow context to be more important than us within a context, things get really weird. And things, we start caring about things that we really don't care about. Like, for example, even though it's scary to hit the delete button, if you were to go to each one of those 20,000 people, you know, like, you don't know anything about the 20,000 people, you know, the vast majority of them, to care about them. They're not good or bad. You just don't, you don't know them, and they don't know you enough to care about, you know, anything like that. And that's like a humbling, brutal truth, is that, and it brings humility, and it brings a sense of service that, like, even with this podcast, if I were never to do another episode, nobody would care.
Exactly.
And that gives me the freedom to go, then I could do whatever I want. Like I can talk to people who just inspire me, and hopefully if something resonates in somebody else, and that just happens, right? And there is a lightness, there is a freedom to being able to do that. And that's what I'm excited for you about
Thank you.
is like as things are happening at the ground level, like just I don't know. Just hearing your story again, I'm like, I don't know if you have fun in pressure, but you certainly thrive under pressure and like unknown. Like I have one wedding for next year. I'm just going to do it because next year's not here yet. And so I'm just going to bust my butt to do it, you know? And that seems to be a theme that I was hearing is I don't know all the answers yet, but I'll figure it out, you know?
It's funny. My sister would probably disagree with you because she listens to the panic, you know,
Yeah.
like, but I don't know. Somebody said to me once, like, you don't know till you go, like, and that has really stuck with me. Like, you don't know till you go. And I have actually spent quite a bit of my life in a trauma response of trying to control everything. So, like, even though I've been taking these risks, I think, you know, even if I've taken the risk, it doesn't really matter. I'm still trying to like control. There's still control there. There's always still been this part of you that's been trying to like control, and and the panic and the anxiety sets in when I realize that, oh, I don't have control, you know, like I could
Mm-hmm.
delete this Instagram and the new Instagram gain no traction. Like I have no idea, but I don't believe that by any means.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
know, yeah.
Yeah.
But like, you know, it I have been trying to maintain the sense of control, and that was part of my letting go process of like, none of it really does matter. Why am I holding so tightly onto all of these things? Like, just let go, just jump and look back in your life and all the times that you have let go, that you have jumped, like quitting to do photography full time, you know, deciding to go live in France, like whatever it might be, getting a dog. Like, that was a spur of the moment, kind of, not super spur, but sort of spur of the moment
Mm-hmm.
thing. Like, and she's been the best thing in my life, you know, like there's been a lot of things that have transpired in my life that have been the best things. And it was when I fully surrendered to it. It was when I let go of my control and was like, you know, hey, I know I could feel it. I knew it was right. And I might have anxiety around it and panic that my sister always hears. But you know, I ended up doing it. And that when I let go, that's when I got the biggest reward from it. So,
Yeah. So what
yeah.
do you biggest reward when you say biggest reward, what do you mean?
Like, biggest reward, as in, like, what I like, I might have had an idea in my head. Like, yes, I wanted to start a photography business, right? Like,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
cool. I didn't realize I was going to start a photography business that I was going to do full time for over a decade that would allow me to shoot in multiple different countries.
Yeah.
Like, to get me that kind of recognition, to make six figures. Like, I had no idea. Like, when I quit Apple to move and to do that, like, I didn't know. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna start a photography business. Like, cool. I just love doing it. Like, it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't, I had no idea that it was gonna grow and be what it was. And so when I say reward, it's like, it's almost as if, like, when I went all in on me, when I took the bets all on and on me, you know, and had faith, I was given, my life was more abundant and more full, and I found more joy in it, and was able to connect with people more, and just found the joy in those things a lot more than
Yeah.
if I, you know, played it safe, or, you know, just stayed and tried to hold on to everything and
Yeah.
control it.
Yeah. So I think it's easy to talk about because photography like worked, right? And now we're
Yeah.
starting this other thing, and that's just amazing, amazing with Roaring Love, right?
Yeah.
Um, what do you have any times where you didn't listen to your gut that serves as like a cautionary tale to you to listen to your gut? Because it's easy to be like, oh, photography worked. I need to listen to my gut, right?
Yeah, yeah. Actually, yes, I do. There, and oddly enough, like, those times that actually stand out to me have
Mm-hmm.
been in romantic relationships. There are two situations with two of my like serious partners that I've had in my life.
Mm-hmm.
Like there was literally a defining moment. I remember like standing there knowing that I had two paths, whether it was to leave or to stay with them. And I knew that I was being told to leave and I didn't, and I stayed. One, unfortunately, was a really, really toxic, abusive relationship, and on every level, physical, mental, emotional. And when I first met him and we started engaging with each other, I literally felt in me that it was not good. Like I knew, like there was something in me that was like, don't date him. I even said to a girlfriend on the phone, I was like, I think he's kind of a bad guy, but I don't know. Like he seems to like me, so I should probably stay away from him. But I don't know. Like
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
said that, and then the next 4 years of my life were hell.
Hmm.
Yeah. So that was definitely a very, and I needed to go through that relationship. There was a lot of like childhood trauma that I was like repeating in that
Yeah.
relationship that I needed to like see and heal and grow from. But yeah, there was definitely a little ping that was like, hey, not good, get away. And I didn't. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Huh. Why do you think the you listen to the pings in business, but not necessarily relationally?
Whew, that's a deep one. Um, real deep. I can tell you why.
You're like, let me tell you. Let me tell you.
We're getting in there. Real deep.
Like on
Yeah.
video, I mean, if people are just listening to audio, they're visualizing you putting the hair up. Like, let's go.
I'm actually, if you are watching the video, you notice I'm a little red now. Yeah. Let me pull my hair back. Yes, no, the reason that has been so hard for me in relationships and throughout my adult life, which, I feel like I finally, after 36 years, have like gotten to this place of understanding with it. But I think for me growing up, my mom was abusive growing up. She was very religious. And I know a lot of people that are in religious environments sometimes deal with this, especially with older generations. But, it was her way or the highway. Like
Mm-hmm.
and if it wasn't that way, like it was like kind of like all hell was breaking loose. Right. So, it was very abusive. It was very toxic. And, I wanted to be chosen. I wanted to be loved. Like I wanted that so bad. Like I didn't feel like I was chosen. I didn't feel like I was accepted for who I was. And I think that scenario from childhood ended up playing out through a lot of my adult life of just feeling like, I need to do anything to get them to love me, to get them to accept me, to get them to choose me. Even if that means compromising my intuition, even if that means compromising myself and what I
Mm-hmm.
believe, like I will play it cool. I will be the cool girl. I will give you whatever you want. I will let you mistreat me and I will still come back. Like I thought love meant sacrifice in that capacity.
Mm-hmm.
And sacrifice of myself, because that was the only way I knew growing up to get love, was that. So yeah, unfortunately that was something I had to unlearn. And I think that is a part of the reason also why I didn't like myself so much, was because I was so often giving myself away in that way, to romantic partners, family, even sometimes friends, and just giving and giving and giving, and until I had nothing. So
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, so that's why I think it was harder for me in relationships, and has always been harder for me in relationships, because I've been having to reparent that part of me and giving to myself what I didn't receive as a child, so that way I don't do that going forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gosh, that just makes so much sense but when you do it with a business and you start seeing traction, there's like this validation that happens. And it's like, even though business has ups and downs, there is that level of control when like that was the control that you were missing in like your relationships,
Yeah.
because you were molding and the other person was allowed to control so much, of it, that in some ways it's made you a great businesswoman.
Yes. I would actually, I would say to my sister all the time, like, everything in my life, like my business is amazing. Everything in my life is amazing. Like other than this, like,
Yeah.
other than relationships, like relationship was always the hardest part for me. It was always the thing that I was struggling with the most. Because, but I also think it came back to what I believed I could have, what I believed I deserved. Like, oh, I can be a business owner. I can have a business. That's easy. Like, I can have that. I can do that. I deserve that. I
Mm-hmm.
have to make money. I need to live. I want to do something I'm passionate about. Like, that was easy to believe in. It was harder to believe in relationships because I had never been given or seen that type of connection, that type of love growing up. Like, I wasn't given that. So, I kind of was in this place of like, well, I don't believe it because look at my whole track record behind me. Look at my past showing me, if my mom can't even love me, then why would anybody else? So it was
Yeah.
harder for me to believe that that was possible for me
Mm-hmm.
than it was for a business, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. Totally. Yeah. It's gosh, I'm just like, it's almost like we're flipped, but like kind of not. I'm like looking at the parallels in our life and everything, and with businesses and with things that have gone well, or things that I like come to the edge of the diving board to.
Yeah.
I, in a lot of ways, I haven't made the jump into anything. I always get to that point and then go, nah, and pull back. Now that has kept me from, going full time in things like photography, going full time when like I was busy, I was
Yeah.
absolutely busy. Photography paid for our wedding, but photography paid for like all these things
Right.
early in in mine and Kendra's marriage. So I think of that, and then all of a sudden, nope, moving away from that. I think of even like things like stand-up comedy, where in
Yeah.
Denver, like doing stand-up comedy, moving up and up and up and up and up, and then getting to the point of like, well, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to need to be waking up, getting into Starbucks, writing every single day, getting to open mics at night, in order to take the next level, and going, nope, I'm not going to do that jump, and so it's manifested itself in a very different way for me, because I too have had issues in relationships, my whole life until Kendra. And even Kendra, people on the podcast have heard our story. Even Kendra and I started as a result of me cheating on my first wife with Kendra. And so
Yeah.
like even that wasn't healthy. But the community that we got around us, all of that. I mean, we're about to be 11 years in next month, September. Yes, next month. And so like
Yay.
I would have never ever thought that would happen. But as a result of that, of being with Kendra, us moving out to Austin, and I'm not sure I've told this story on the podcast before, I was hitting the wall professionally, thinking like, yeah, I have these soft skills. Yes, I'm a leader, where I'm at, and I have these certain skills, but like that's not good for business. Like it's
Mm.
I don't how am I going to use that? How am I going to monetize it? And Kendra literally sat me down going, if we're going to hit our goals as a family, like you have skills that you are not valuing at
Wow.
at what the market is valuing, and you need to figure that shit out, because our family is dependent on you valuing you as much as you need to. And so like go figure that out. I'm just letting you know that your family's waiting on you to do that. And then
Wow.
all of a sudden, it took 3 years. Just because you have an epiphany does not entitle you
No.
to anything happening, right? And so, it took 3 years of navigating what that means
Yeah.
at all, and going, okay, well then what is true about me? And like, what's the difference between what is true and what I wish was true? And then how do I lean into the things that are true? And then what are the opportunities that are keeping me from things? And is that something that I need to get better at versus delegating and finding somebody to help me with those things? And that just the natural progression. And then now we're in Austin, and we're in a position where she's not going to have to work for much longer because of it. And I mean, it's just that same kind of story, right? And I think that's everybody's story. We were talking before we hit record. There is nothing special about you or I, right? There's nothing special except looking at who we are and having somebody navigate with us, like, what are our strengths? What is in our hand? Okay, now we know the tools we have. Let's get to work with those. You know, and I think what I've noticed, and you've in your interactions and with the people who you've helped, I find that a lot of people, me saying that is nice to hear, but a lot of people go, cool, but I don't even know who the hell I am.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what my strengths are. I don't know what value I bring to anything. And so it takes a little bit of uncovering that, but then getting over the disappointment of, wait, that's the thing that's great about me. I just do that so easily. Why is that so special?
Yeah.
Why? And then like going, wait, but it is special. And then leaning into it to actually use it as a tool to change your life. That is a whole freaking process. And each one of those steps sometimes requires going through some experiences for you to understand how to use it or how to navigate it.
Yeah. It's like it's acceptance for sure. Like you have to like be willing to like look in the mirror and take accountability for those things. Like, right? Like, this is who I am. This is the life I've created. This is what I chose to do. This is what I chose to not do. Right. And seeing this is why I'm calling myself a self-concept coach, but like seeing what the concept of you is, like, what is your concept of yourself? Because you're acting in X, Y, and Z way because of a belief that you have about yourself. Like there's a reason I held myself back with romantic relationships. There's a reason you held yourself back when it came to your like career or like going full time with a business or whatever. Right. And I was laughing. I was like, Kendra should be a self-concept coach.
Right.
So yeah. But it's like, you know, and being willing to see, wow, this is where I have chosen to hold myself back. It's all well and good to sit here and be like, oh, I know why. I've spent years knowing why I was in an abusive relationship. I know why I, you know, didn't have healthy relationships and, you know, was with men that cheated on me. I know why I played the cool girl. Like, I know why I did all of that. I told you just now on the podcast because, you know, my childhood trauma and blah, blah, blah. It's one thing to know why. It's another thing to hold accountability for it and say, okay, but that's not me.
Yeah.
That happened to me and that sucks. And this is where knowing yourself comes in, right? Like, because a lot of times we define ourselves by those experiences. Well, that happened to me, so that must be who I am. Like, I am abused. I am hurt. I am cheated on. I am whatever. Like, it's all this, I am this. But all of that happened in the past and we're living in the present. The present is what's here. That's not that. And so it's not to say that, yes, feel your feelings, please. But like, you know, it's not to say don't feel sad, but it's to not let it make you shift. Like, stand firm in the identity of I am worthy. I am chosen. I am, no matter what, because I say so. And it kind of sounds like when Kendra like said that to you, like said those things to you, you kind of were like, yeah, I am being this, but I want to be this. So I have to decide to be this.
Yeah.
So that way I can provide for my family and myself. And also so you can have a good sense of like yourself, like sense of worth for yourself, you know?
Yeah.
You don't want to let down your family.
Oh, absolutely. And sometimes like, it's like, okay, a line in the sand and then you don't know, okay, cool. Yeah. I need to value myself more. what the hell does that mean? Okay, I don't even know where to start. And then you just start like writing down, okay, why am I constantly at work? Why am I constantly like asked to be point person on these sorts of situations relationally with people?
Yeah.
Why am I constantly, there has to be a skill there. There has to be something that I'm not seeing. And
Yeah.
so it's asking the people around you, like, why did you ask me to do this? Like, what did you see in me? And then you start identifying these things and go, man, like that's okay. Okay,
Yeah.
I didn't realize I had that impact,
Yeah.
on things. And so it does take a little bit of uncovering. Sometimes I feel like when people hear a good phrase, like take example, whatever Kendra told me,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's so easy for people to take their hurt and go, yeah, that's right. I am valuable. So I'm going to reject everybody before they can reject me and not see that I'm valuable. Screw them, like they're going to
Yeah.
miss out. So like, where have you seen, because we've all have swung that way to
Yeah.
be to be that I'm my only ride or die. Screw everybody else, like
Yeah.
what have you learned going through that process?
Um, well, I mean, when I started my photography business, I wanted to do everything myself.
Yeah.
Like a lot of photographers, especially when you go into the wedding industry, like they'll start by like second shooting for other photographers,
Mhm.
kind of getting a feel for things, talking with other photographers. I was kind of like, screw that. I was like, I'm just going to jump in. And I think I had to learn a lot of things the hard way because of that, like
Yeah.
I didn't, I was like, yeah, I can do this. I can do this on my own because I'm good enough and I can do it. I don't need anybody else. Like, and I think that attitude, like, yeah, it was fun. I'm not gonna lie. It was kind of like fuel to a fire a little bit. It did light a fire under my ass. But like at the
Yeah.
same time, there were a lot of things that I probably, if I had like sought out mentorship or like asked questions or like kept a more of a community around me, I probably didn't have to learn those things the hard way. So
Yeah.
I think that's kind of how that has shown up in my life. Has always been like, you know, yeah, no, I'm good. I'm so good. I can do it on my own. Like I
Yeah.
think that's
Yeah.
been kind of my, thing. And so with this, I'm trying not to do that with like shifting this new business and shifting into that. I've been talking to other coaches. I've been asking questions. Like it was very humbling for me. There's a girl that I know. She's 10 years younger than me and is also a coach. She was relationship coaching. And, to ask her, like, what are you doing on your social media? Because like I had to admit that like I didn't know how to market myself as a coach. I had no
Yeah.
idea. I didn't know
Yeah.
how to do Instagram as a coach. I knew how to do it as a photographer. I post my
Yeah.
pictures. Easy. As
Yeah.
a coach, I have to talk. I have to put myself out there. I have to like, and so like coming off from this place of like, wow, I'm the leader in my industry. I've been doing it for 14 years. I know everything. The business just comes to me, to being like, I'm the new kid on the block and I have no idea what I'm doing. Like
Yeah.
it, oh man, it's been so hard, but I've been forcing myself to ask people because I don't want to think that I'm too good or so valuable or so knowledgeable that like I reject like help when I need it.
Yeah. Yeah. What's been your
Yeah.
biggest learn so far?
I think for me, the biggest thing really has been like what I've learned about myself, honestly. Like I think like you said, it took you, I think you said a couple years to like
Yeah.
navigate to where you are now. Same. Like, I noticed that when I was in my early 20s starting my photography business, I was a little more fearless. Like I was a little more like, yeah, I'm just gonna quit this job. Whereas this time I was like, I know things, I've lived like, 14 more years. Like I
Yeah.
know what life is like. I've got more bills to pay. Like, it's kind of like there was a little bit more hesitancy. But so there was that piece of like learning and seeing that difference of like being, even though I'm more knowledgeable in running a business, there was still more fear because it was like letting that go and knowing what a risk it was because I've done it.
Yeah.
But also I think my therapist said to me 2 years ago when I started thinking about this, yes, it's taken me 2 years to like pull the trigger and say like, yeah, let's do this. Um, my therapist literally was like, when are you going to get out from behind your camera?
Yeah.
And it has taken it, and it's still, I'm not going to lie, it's still taking a lot for me to use my voice, to
Mm-hmm.
show my face, to put myself out there, because just as much as I am coaching my clients to believe in themselves, to
Mm-hmm.
rewire their subconscious and their brain and flip their story so that way they can go out and manifest and create the life that they dream of, you know, the way that I have, the way that you have, like the way that normal people can do. Um, I I have had to do that for myself in doing this.
Yeah.
I had to learn how to believe in myself in a different capacity. I had to believe that what I have to say is valuable, that somebody needs to hear it, that um yeah, it's really required me to connect more to myself, to know myself more, to know my boundaries, to protect my energy,
Mm-hmm.
to be willing to show up.
Mm-hmm.
And I also learned in starting this business with photography, you know, you can go and you take pictures and you have a good time. And yes, you're laughing and connecting and all of that. That's great. But with, you know, coaching, I'm connecting with people on a very like, much more intimate, much deeper level,
Mm-hmm.
even more so. I mean, I was doing that with photography too, but even more so. And I recognize what that comes with great responsibility. And if I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
hold that space for people, I have to hold that space for myself. Like I have
Yeah.
to take care of me. And so that's meant like, you might not want to go to the gym, Jessica, but you need to because you need it for your mental health and your physical health. You
Yeah.
might not want to, you know, have a night in, but you know you've got a couple of big coaching sessions tomorrow. So like you need to like ground your energy and like be ready to like, you know, hold space for these people.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I'm gonna coach somebody to do this, I have to practice what I preach.
Mm-hmm.
So that's been like my biggest learning experience. And ironically, I have, through launching this business, I have changed and grown so much as a person. And I joke all the time that I might be coaching my clients, but they're coaching me just as much as I'm coaching them. So
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's almost impossible to not. I think that's what's fascinating about what you just said is sometimes you hop on Instagram and the proverbial you, not like you,
yeah,
but
yeah,
like
yeah.
yeah, you you hop on
Just me.
Instagram, yeah, exactly. And I'm like I'm flipping through and there's this thing, hey, let's take the deleting the account thing. Hey,
Yeah.
I'm deleting the account, in a week. And I think it's important for people to know that that wasn't like a wild hair,
No,
that
no.
that took there was a process before that of like digging in, of confidence building, of navigating the next step into that I think is important for people to know, like the story where just because you had a thought today, like steward that thought
Yeah.
and water it. And you have a
Yep.
responsibility where if that is a gut check and that is something that just resonates of something that should be done, steward the hell out of it. You be a gardener of that idea. And it's a responsibility is essentially the bottom line. And Kendra and I, have kind of learned how that could be too, because I told you, we have there's me, full blood Mexican, Kendra, who's white, and then both of our children are half black.
Yeah.
We went through a whole process of talking to people. Just they see the
It's
dachshund
so
behind,
cute.
trying to get comfortable. We went through the whole process of like navigating with our friends about like, hey, like here's what we're thinking, with the donor, like set us straight. And this was months. And
Yeah.
so we only let people into that circle who we talked to about it. People who
Yeah.
were not in that circle just by chance because they just didn't know about the situation was our families. So when
Yeah.
we just came to our families one day and was like, "Hey, guess what? You know, I can't have kids, but that's okay because we're gonna do IUI. By the way, blah blah blah, blah, like our donor's
Yeah.
black." Like everything just hit them over the head. And so sometimes there is going to be the community around us who may be surprised by
Yeah.
that, and they're going to react in different ways, and they may know you in a certain context and stuff like that. But that's okay, as long as you are stewarding what you're supposed to well. And I think what you did was steward it well. What we did with Kendra and I are just great examples of what that can look like. Done a lot of things wrong, but I think in those instances, I think it's super important,
Yeah.
to do those things right.
Yes. Yes, exactly. I think it's definitely important. Like, I could sit here and say like, yeah, I took these big risks and these big leaps, but it didn't come without like thought, like it definitely, if anytime I had a gut feeling to do something, it did come with thought. Like, deleting my Instagram, to create my new one for Roaring Love, like that did come with thought. That also came with research. Like I researched like, you know, deleting my account and what that would look like. And should I delete my account? And what are some reasons that you might
Yeah.
want to delete your account and start over? Like I did research, and I was, talking with my friend here about that. And, he was like, how's the switch been going? And I was like, actually, it's been so good. Like I'm getting so many more like non-follower, like engagement than I ever have. Which is what I wanted, because I want to grow the
Yeah.
community,
Yeah.
But it wasn't just like a willy-nilly like, oh, I'm just going to delete it, like because it's not working, so I'm just going to delete it. And I was like telling him, I was like, no, I did all this research. And because he was like, well, why, like why are you doing, like why? And so I was like, well, here's what I found. And he was like, oh, he's like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I was like, yeah, like I'm not just out here just like shooting arrows into the dark and hoping it lands somewhere. Like I'm definitely like trying to, so but it's like, but the cool thing is when you do get like more, and I'm sure you and Kendra felt this way, especially when it comes to having a baby. This is very different than deleting your Instagram in a lot of ways, but
well, hey, it literally feeds you, so like in a lot of ways it's just as important.
True. It does pay my bills.
Yeah.
So yes, but I think that I don't even remember what I was gonna say.
That's fine. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I'm sorry.
It'll come to me. I think a lot of times when it seems like you're taking that big risk, or you're gonna like, oh, we're doing this, or like this is the donor we found, or like, and you make that decision, like this is what I was gonna say. It's so important when you have that idea of your self-concept and your identity, like who you are and what your values are, and where you've come from and where you've been and where you want to go, and like having like that clear definition and that clarity on yourself, because then that is what helps you go through that research and like ask those questions and talk to the people you need to talk to, and continuing to bring that back to yourself of like, okay, I've got this information, this is who I am. And like I knew, like deleting my Instagram, I knew my goal, like I was very clear and had clarity that my goal was to build a community. First and foremost, I wanted to build a community that empowered people, that made them feel seen, that made them feel like they could achieve the things they wanted to in their lives, to help them like get past these things that are making them feel stuck. And I knew that with my old account, I wasn't going to do that, because I wasn't getting the reach. It wasn't happening. And there's a few reasons that I won't go into why, but like there was reasons that wasn't happening when I did my research. And I was like, okay, because my goal, because I'm so clear on this goal, and this is who I am, and this is the community I want to build, this is a no-brainer option. This is, after I did my research, I was like, this is a no-brainer. Like this is what I have to do, So this is the way I want to do it. So I feel like having that clarity of yourself and your identity and like, your self-concept, that's so important. And that's what I try to help my clients navigate, like getting to like, where is their brain right now? Where is their self-concept right now? Where do they want to be? Where do they want it to be? Who do they want to be? And then letting that like new concept of themselves, that new story, like be in the driver's seat, rather than the pain and the fear and the trauma and all of that.
Yeah. Yeah. And then not having the pressure of, listen, you're telling yourself a new story, but you've told yourself the old story for how many years? Muscle
Yeah.
memory is a powerful thing.
Yeah.
And then you think you're okay, and then all of a sudden something happens, and the knee-jerk reaction is the old behavior. And that
Yeah.
is, it's not a loss, but it just like tells you it's part of being human,
Yeah.
and you may be perfectly fine in one context and then not in another, and that's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's why, like, I try to work with my clients constantly of like giving them tools in the moment where they're not innocent. Like, stuff's going to happen in life that's not enjoyable. Right. And my goal working with my clients is to give them tools to help them develop the habits of
Mhm.
the version of them that they have clarity on that they want to be. Right. So that way, when they are in those moments that are rocky, they have the tools to come back home to themselves, to
Yep.
be like, okay, this thing happened. It knocked me away from my home. It knocked me away from my, myself. But I have these tools that can bring me back to myself now, because I have that clarity. I have that understanding of like who I am and where I'm trying to go. And honestly, I feel like most of the people that I work with, it really comes down to this belief in themselves, this worth, knowing their worth. I feel like so many times, like, it always comes back to this like underlying belief of like, well, I'm not good enough, or I don't deserve this, or I don't feel worthy. And, obviously coming from, trauma and all these things in their lives, and helping them navigate and really solidifying the belief in them that they are, and they get to choose that they are, and
Mhm.
then giving them the tools to come back to that when life gets rocky.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah.
then recognizing that it's going to come back. You're going to feel
Yeah.
not worthy. You're going to feel
Yeah.
all that.
Yep.
Then these tools, hopefully,
Yep.
like, I think, I'm not sure if I've said it on the, I definitely know I've had conversations. I forget if it's been on the podcast, but I was like on Instagram, there was something that I saw where it's like everybody falls off the horse. Your goal is not to not fall off the horse. The goal is to
Right.
compress the amount of time it takes to get back on.
Exactly.
And so if you can start seeing, when you start feeling unworthy, something changes physiologically. And if you could catch those earlier, it's going to take a lot less effort to go, oh, I need to adjust that
Exactly.
and get back on the horse. And that's a lot easier than it being down the road. And now you're 4 years into a relationship, like what you were
Yeah.
saying, right? In
Yeah.
order, in order to change it.
Yeah. I actually recently experienced that, which is crazy that you're bringing it up. So I recently, so, for me, a lot of, I used to always say like, oh, I wear my heart on my sleeves. I'm just very emotional. Like, I just always felt like I was so emotional. And even
Yeah.
as a kid, like, my dad would tease me for my big emotions. Like, he would just be like, oh, here's Jessica again with her big emotions, like,
Yeah.
I would get so upset. And, part of my healing that I've been going through since my big, what I call like my awakening in 2020, when everything shit hit the fan, was I hated that. I hated that I just felt out of control. And then I started recognizing that I actually had a choice in that. And recently, I don't, I guess I'm going to say it. Recently, I found out that ex got engaged. And in the moment, I was upset. Like, I definitely was
Mm.
upset. And it's not because I want to be with him anymore.
Yeah.
Like, I'm so far past that relationship. It's been over 4 years at this point. But I
Yeah.
think it was because of like, I wanted to go back to my old story of like, see, you weren't chosen. See, like, you look, he spent the last 4 years building a relationship and you're single. Like,
Mm-hmm.
like I wanted to
Mm-hmm.
kind of go into that place, and I did for a bit. But what was so beautiful to me was, even though I started to go there, because I've been working so hard on like, this identity that I want to have and the belief of myself, it literally lasted a night.
Yep.
Whereas 4 years ago, that would have like knocked me out. I would have stopped working on my business. I would have like complained about it to every person I possibly could. I would have
Yep.
had, the next day after that, I was going hiking with my sister when I found out. And I, like, the whole hike, normally in the past, I would have like bitched and complained about it the whole hike. And it would have been this whole long saga of like, I'm not good enough and, and all these
Yeah.
things, whereas I recognized in that moment that I was over it. Like, I was like, wow, that hit, that hurt, but like I recovered so much quicker because
Yeah.
I remembered, I got back to that. I came back to myself. I was like, no,
Yeah.
you're worthy, you're whole, you are chosen, you choose yourself. Like, you know, like you don't need somebody to choose you to know that you're valuable. Like,
Yeah.
and, um, and yeah, and then I ended up having an amazing day with my sister the next day. Like,
So what I'm hearing is that your sister is really grateful that you've worked on yourself too, because that would have
100%.
ruined the hike.
100%. No, and truthfully, like she did, like she's definitely made a few comments to me, like at, you know, in the last few years, like as I've grown as a person and I've dove deeper into self-concept work and like, and grown as a person, like obviously I'm not going to coach people in something that I haven't done myself, you know? So
Hmm.
she's made comments to me, you know, like she can tell that there has been a shift. Like she can tell that like I've calmed down, you know, like I'm not, you know, I'm not like getting overly emotional and being able to focus on me. Like
Yeah.
that's the part of it, is like I've been so bogged down that like I was not able to like breathe. Like, you know, I was so focused on what everybody else was doing and how they were a problem to me,
Hmm.
rather than like looking at myself. Like if it weren't for me so focused on that, like where would I be now? Like, you know, like
Yeah.
I and it's just I just feel lighter, I feel freer because of it, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. And it's what I love about that is, like, number one, it's okay to have the reaction. It's okay to
yeah,
feel a way.
yeah,
But at some point you have to, maybe it's not deliberately, maybe it's just like a quick shift where you're like, oh, it's going, nope, not going to allow that to happen. But at some
yep,
point you have to feel it, but you have to ask yourself the question, now what?
yeah, yeah. How am I going to let this, am I going to let this define me in any kind of way? And how am I going to continue about my life? Like obviously, like my ex getting engaged has like no bearing in my life whatsoever. We don't even really have mutual friends anymore. Like, you know,
I was gonna say,
like
like was not over there going, how could I ruin Jessica's day? Oh, I know.
yeah, I'm gonna
I know.
propose.
Yeah, yeah, like this is going to yeah. Yeah, I
I
mean,
mean,
life just
truthfully,
doesn't work that way.
I mean, truthfully, it was the girl he left me for. So,
Okay. All right.
but it doesn't matter, right? Like
Yeah, yeah.
that doesn't just because that happened doesn't mean that like I'm less than something. Like
Yeah.
whereas
Yeah.
like before, like it like that belief that I had was actually probably the demise of that relationship. Like
Yeah.
I was always looking for validation from him. I was always looking for him to do exactly what I wanted, when I wanted, how I wanted. So that way I knew that I was chosen and I was valued. And that's just crap to put on somebody, you know?
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Yeah. It's it's true. It's true. That's a lot to put on somebody where it's like, hey, my self-worth and who I am, you're driving that bus. And so,
Yeah.
and they're like, I did not sign up to drive this bus
No.
for me
And
because
he got off at the first stop.
oh well,
He's like, I'm out.
and it's one of those things where like other people are like, I don't have that. I'm not even driving my own bus
No,
for that. I
no.
can't drive your bus and my bus at the same time,
Right.
kind of a thing, which is absolutely true.
Right.
Yeah, it's oh, it's crazy. Well, I have loved our conversation. Just
Me
FYI,
too.
this has been a ton of fun, and I'm so glad we talked beforehand, because the listeners would have just gotten like, what's been going on in life for the past decade, and that would have been like the first 30 minutes, of this whole
Yeah,
thing. Um,
yeah.
but we end every episode with the same question, and it is the theme of the podcast. So, Jessica, there's going to be people who are going to listen to this story and go, you know what? That is good for you. I am so happy for you that you were able to do that. But I don't know if I can. I don't know if I can do that. I don't know if I could jump off the diving board and start my own business that I've been wanting to. I don't know if I could do all those things. What would you do to encourage those people that if you can do it, they can too?
Well, that's what my whole coaching is about.
Right?
That's the whole reason I'm coaching.
Yeah.
I mean, truthfully, I mean, obviously, if it's not me, like I would definitely encourage you to really soul search. because I am a firm believer that what you believe will be, and nothing's going to change in your life unless something changes. So, you have to recognize, okay, what have I been believing about myself? And if I believe like I'm not going to be able to do it, then you won't.
Mm-hmm.
And I really think it's the first step is taking accountability of that belief and recognizing I don't believe it, and then asking yourself, well, do I want to believe it? And if you do want to believe it, cool, like get to work, like take accountability of that and get to work on believing in yourself and rewriting that story and rewiring those like neural pathways in your brain so that way you can achieve it. And there's lots of support. I mean, there's so many things online these days that I feel like you can find on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, like people talking about this kind of stuff. And there's so many coaches and therapists out there that are working with people to do this, because I feel like this is a theme that all humans have, is they feel
Mm-hmm.
very limited and held back and stuck. And so if it's not me, if you don't want to coach with me, like definitely find somebody, because I think having that accountability is like the piece that a lot of my clients say, wow, like really having that accountability to hold myself to that new story, to hold myself to the belief that I'm trying to get towards, and somebody walking with me, like Kendra did for you.
Mm-hmm.
Like Kendra did that. That's what she did for you,
Mm-hmm.
So having somebody that can hold you accountable to that too. So.
I love it. And if people hear your story and go, all right, I want to connect. I want to connect with her. I need some help. Where do they find you? Where's the new Instagram?
The new Instagram is roaring.loveco, CO on the end. Yeah, so you can find me there and chat, shoot me a DM. If you want to coach with me, I have a 2-week coaching program where we dive into this, honestly, where we literally dig into this. I spend the first month with you kind of diving into your subconscious thoughts and beliefs and what you believe about yourself, and helping you like rewiring that, having some breakthroughs, trying to help you to become the person that you want to become. And then I spend the second month really hardwiring that in, so it becomes a habit. You can use those tools that I give you, and then hopefully carry that with you through the rest of your life, so that you can make those daily choices. Just like exercise, it's a daily choice to grow and learn and all of that. So so I have a coaching program that can help people with that, or you can just follow my Instagram and listen to my reels.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank
And
you, Isaac.
everybody, this week, if it has inspired you at all, definitely review, follow Icamargo on Instagram. Not because, oh, I need more followers and subscribers. None of that. It's because there are rules to this game called podcasting. And if you want stories like Jessica's or any other story that you have heard on the podcast, them be the rules. So let me know if you've been inspired. And hey, do something to make you proud of you this week, all right? All right.